Agnes, it's me, Billy. Have you ever wondered how a holiday slasher from the mid-70s became one of the most unsettling cult classics ever filmed? Black Christmas, 1974, wasn't just an early horror movie. It was a quiet revolution, raw, experimental, and far more chaotic behind the scenes than anyone realized. Today, we're pulling apart the shadows with 20 weird facts about Black Christmas. Let's begin. Hit that play button, because we're going in. Fact number 1. The opening POV shot nearly didn't happen. The eerie opening POV shot. Billy creeping around the sorority house feels iconic today, but it barely made it into the film. The equipment needed to achieve that perspective was bulky, unstable, and not designed for movement through tight hallways or icy shrubs. Cinematographer Albert J. Dunk ended up strapping the camera to his head and shoulders, crawling through snowbanks while crew members guided him from behind, like a living tripod. Every breath risked fogging the lens. Every shift in weight threatened to topple the shot. Clark watched the dailies expecting chaos, but what he saw instead was a visual breakthrough, not a technical gimmick. A discovery born from discomfort. That improvised physical struggle created one of horror's most influential visual signatures. Without it, Black Christmas might have opened like any other thriller, but instead, it placed the audience inside the mind of the unseen killer from the very first frame. Fact number 2. Olivia Hussey took the role because of a psychic. Olivia Hussey's decision to join Black Christmas wasn't guided by Hollywood logic. It came from a psychic's prediction. After Romeo and Juliet, scripts flooded her doorstep. But one spiritual advisor told her that her next major film would make her famous worldwide. When Black Christmas arrived, Hussey immediately felt it was the project the psychic had described. Clark was surprised she accepted so quickly, but Hussey insisted she just knew, not career strategy. Intuition fused with belief. Her performance became the film's emotional center, grounding the horror in real vulnerability. While the movie wasn't a box office smash in 1974, its cult reputation grew massively over the decades. Millions now recognize Hussey as one of early horror's most memorable leads, fulfilling the prediction almost eerily well. Her casting wasn't calculated. It was fate, or something that felt like it. Fact number 3. Margot Kidder improvised many of her most iconic moments. Margot Kidder's portrayal of Barb is sharp, unpredictable, and unforgettable, and much of that energy came from pure improvisation. Bob Clark encouraged his actors to explore emotional rhythms naturally, and Kidder took that freedom further than anyone expected. Her sarcastic monologues, snappy interruptions, and wild shifts in tone weren't refined in rehearsals, they erupted during takes. The famous Turtle story, completely unscripted, not polished acting, raw creative spark. Kidder's improvisation added chaotic contrast to the film's quieter performances, forcing the atmosphere to feel constantly unstable. Her presence unsettles scenes even when the killer isn't there, creating a parallel tension that Clark believed elevated the entire film. Kidder didn't just play Barb. She built her from instinct, humor, and a rebellious streak that still feels modern. Her spontaneous choices shaped the movie's emotional texture more than any written line could have. Fact number 4. Billy's phone calls were performed by multiple people. The terrifying phone calls that define Black Christmas feel like they come from one deranged source. But behind the scenes, they were created by multiple voices layered together. Clark wanted Billy to sound fractured, someone whose personality splintered into different tones, rhythms, and emotional states. So the calls were performed by an actor, a crew member, and Clark himself. Each took on different vocal qualities: rage, whimpering, manic laughter, and whispered fragments of dialogue. Not character creation, psychological collage. When the recordings were combined, the effect was unsettling even to the crew. Some refused to stay in the room while playback was running. The mixture of overlapping voices felt too disturbingly real. It's this fractured construction that gives Billy his chilling presence. The voice isn't just disturbing, it's unstable, unpredictable, and impossible to fully identify, making him one of horror's most haunting unseen villains. Fact number 5. Keir Dullea filmed all his scenes in only 1 week. Keir Dullea, who plays Jess's increasingly unstable boyfriend Peter, was simultaneously working on another project, forcing the production to schedule his scenes into a compressed 1-week window. He never interacted extensively with most of the cast, and filmed many moments without the full ensemble present. Not collaborative ensemble acting, fragmented performance construction. Clark had to piece together Peter's unraveling through editing, reaction shots, and clever blocking rather than long dramatic exchanges. This unexpectedly worked in the film's favor. Peter feels distant, disconnected, and emotionally adrift, qualities that mirror the audience's suspicion of him. His performance, built from isolated fragments, fed directly into the film's misdirection, making viewers question whether Peter might be the killer. The time limitation wasn't a setback. It became an artistic advantage, transforming logistical pressure into one of the movie's most effective emotional tools. Fact number 6. Real sorority houses rejected the production. When Clark began scouting locations, he hoped to film inside a real sorority house to ground the story in authenticity. But when colleges learned the movie involved disturbing phone calls and a killer inside the house, they refused permission immediately. Many felt the subject matter would reflect poorly on their organizations. Only one house finally agreed. And even then, Clark had to reassure the owners repeatedly that the filming would be respectful and minimally disruptive. Not luxury set design, negotiated realism under pressure. The production used the space carefully, adding small touches rather than major alterations. The lived-in authenticity of the sorority house, uneven banisters, warm lighting, seasonal decorations became crucial to the film's emotional tone. The contrast between the cozy environment and the lurking danger intensified the horror. What looked like a normal holiday home became a terrifying maze simply because a few doors remained closed. Fact number 7. Andrea Martin originally auditioned for Barb. Before becoming the quiet, bookish Phil, Andrea Martin auditioned for the role of Barb, the sharp, abrasive sorority sister who steals every scene she's in. Clark loved Martin's performance, but felt she didn't quite match the explosive energy he imagined for Barb. Instead, he offered her the role of Phil, believing her grounded, observant presence would balance the ensemble. Not miscasting, strategic recalibration. Martin later said she couldn't picture herself playing Barb after seeing what Margot Kidder did with the character. Kidder's improvisational fire turned Barb into a force of nature, while Martin's steady performance gave the group emotional equilibrium. This contrast strengthened the film. Barb's chaotic energy collided perfectly with Phil's caution, reflecting the broader tension between certainty and confusion that defines Black Christmas. Martin didn't land the role she expected, but she landed the role the film needed. Fact number 8. The crew used real winter weather and paid the price. Instead of using artificial snow or controlled studio environments, the production embraced the real Canadian winter, and the conditions were punishing. The crew filmed in sub-zero temperatures, often working long nights while ice formed on equipment and actors' breath fogged the lenses. Not atmospheric effect. Survival filmmaking. Actors stepped onto porches slick with real frost, and exterior takes had to be limited to protect the cast from prolonged exposure. At times, the camera crew wrapped heating pads around equipment just to keep it functional. The result was a freezing, authentic visual texture that no special effects team could replicate. The cold wasn't acting, it was absorbed into every performance, making characters appear tense, shivery, and visibly uncomfortable. The winter didn't just set the mood. It became one of the film's hidden antagonists, shaping the story's atmosphere with relentless, biting realism. Fact number 9. Lynn Griffin performed the plastic bag scene multiple times. The film's most haunting visual, Claire lying motionless with a plastic bag over her head, was far more difficult to shoot than viewers realize. To achieve the eerie stillness Clark wanted, Lynn Griffin had to lie perfectly still for long stretches while breathing through a tiny gap in the bag. Each angle required a new take, and each take demanded extreme breath control, not stunt work. Endurance performance. Griffin later recalled how challenging it was to remain motionless, while ensuring the plastic didn't flutter unnaturally. Every breath risked breaking the illusion. The end result is one of horror's most chilling, iconic images, a moment so quietly disturbing that it doesn't need movement to terrify. Griffin's commitment turned a simple visual into a lasting nightmare, proving that horror doesn't always require action. Sometimes, stillness is the most unsettling thing of all. Fact number 10. The ending was completely rewritten. The original ending for Black Christmas provided clearer resolution, but Clark felt the story demanded something colder, something that would linger after the credits. He rewrote the finale so Jess never learns who the killer is. Instead, the camera drifts through the silent house, past rooms filled with unresolved terror, ending on the phone ringing relentlessly beside Jess's bed. not closure. A chilling, open wound. Executives feared audiences would feel unsatisfied, but Clark believed horror should leave viewers unsettled, not comforted. His decision gave the film one of its most haunting final moments, a quiet, ringing reminder that evil can remain hidden even after the supposed ending. And before we move forward, go ahead and like and subscribe, because these deep dive breakdowns take time, research, and a real love for the classics. Now, let's return to the shadows. Fact number 11. Billy was never meant to have a backstory. In a genre that often explains everything, Black Christmas made a radical choice. Billy was never supposed to have a past you could trace. Director Bob Clark refused to give him a neat file of motivations, traumas, or origin scenes. Instead, Billy's disturbing phone calls feel like fragments, shards of emotion, confusion, and rage delivered in unpredictable bursts. Clark once said the ambiguity made Billy far more frightening because audiences fear the shapes they can't fully see. Not a clear biography. A door deliberately left open. This creative restraint had an unexpected consequence. It influenced an entire wave of later slashers. Billy became a template for villains who exist in the shadows, explained only by the fear they produce, rather than the details they reveal. His presence set the tone for future horror, mysterious, fragmented, unknowable. Fact number 12. The film inspired John Carpenter's Halloween. Though Halloween stands firmly on its own pedestal, its DNA carries a subtle echo of Black Christmas. John Carpenter has spoken about his conversations with Bob Clark, discussions that circled around the idea of a mysterious killer, quiet, suburban dread, and tension built through slow, stalking perspective shots. Not imitation, evolution. Clark's experimental approach, especially the use of sustained POV shots and the patient buildup of suspense, helped show what a minimalistic slasher could accomplish. When Halloween premiered 4 years later, many fans noticed the spiritual through line, the faceless threat, the unsettling silence, the sense that danger could strike without warning. While Carpenter pushed the concept into new territory, Clark's work provided the framework. The two films aren't competitors. They're chapters in the same creative lineage, with Black Christmas quietly shaping one of the most influential horror films ever made. Fact number 13. The studio wanted a more obvious killer. Behind the scenes, one of the biggest creative battles wasn't about lighting or budget, it was about identity. Studio executives pushed Bob Clark to reveal Billy clearly in a dramatic final confrontation. They argued that audiences needed closure, a face, a motive, something clean to wrap the story with. Clark pushed back harder. He insisted the film's terror depended on uncertainty. The idea that Jess might have survived the night without ever understanding who hunted her was, in his view, the very core of the horror. Not compromise, creative conviction. His refusal caused legitimate tension during production meetings and slowed final approval. But it preserved the film's now iconic ending. A lingering phone ring, a drifting camera, a house still hiding a secret. The unknown didn't weaken the film. It strengthened its legacy, setting it apart from more conventional slashers of the era. Fact number 14. The unicorn statue scene was improvised on set. The unforgettable unicorn statue scene, glittering, elegant, and violently reimagined, was never part of the original script. While filming inside the sorority house, Bob Clark noticed the glass unicorn prop sitting on a shelf. Its pointed horn immediately sparked an idea. What if elegance became a weapon? This quick on-set inspiration led to one of the film's most visually striking moments. Clark staged the attack in slow motion, allowing the camera to linger on the shimmering edges of the statue as it moved through air. Not planned brutality, accidental art. The scene became a perfect blend of beauty and menace, crystallizing the film's signature contrast between festive charm and lurking horror. It shows how spontaneous creativity born within seconds can define an entire movie. Today, it remains one of the most referenced sequences in discussions of 70s horror craftsmanship.
Fact number 15. The prank call technology barely worked. The unsettling phone calls that drive the film's tension relied on a real telephone system the crew could barely control. The prop phone wasn't a simple sound cue. It was an actual ringing mechanism wired through equipment that malfunctioned constantly. Sometimes it rang too early, interrupting dialogue. Sometimes it rang too late, forcing actors to hold frozen expressions. Sometimes it didn't ring at all. Not seamless filmmaking. Stop and start tension. The unpredictability frustrated everyone on set, but it accidentally created a more chaotic energy during filming. Actors were genuinely thrown off balance, reacting with irritation, fear, or confusion emotions that synced perfectly with the story's mood. Even though it caused headaches behind the scenes, the flawed system ultimately made the calls feel jagged, intrusive, and disturbingly real, contributing to the film's eerie authenticity. Fact number 16. The cat caused multiple continuity problems. Claude, the sorority house cat, looks innocent in the film, but behind the scenes, he created constant continuity chaos. He had no interest in hitting marks, responding to cues, or following the script. Actors would deliver emotional lines, only for Claude to wander in the opposite direction, or stop mid-scene to stare into space. One of the most important shots required him to approach the attic, but he refused to move. The crew tried feeding him, tempting him with toys, and even making gentle noises off camera. Claude ignored them all with regal indifference. Not a trained performer. A furry wildcard. Eventually, Clark relied on clever editing and quick cutaways to create the illusion that the cat was cooperating. Claude may have been unpredictable, but his presence added texture to the house, reinforcing the feeling that life continued around the horror. Fact number 17. The house attic was as cramped as it looks. The attic wasn't a spacious set built on a soundstage. It was a real, cramped upper room inside the sorority house. The slanted ceiling left barely enough room for one person to stand upright, and the crew had to wedge lighting equipment into tight corners to achieve the film's haunting glow. Actors crawled, crouched, and twisted their bodies into uncomfortable positions to make shots possible. Every movement had to be carefully choreographed to avoid hitting antique beams or knocking into gear. Not stage illusion, physical constraint. The claustrophobia wasn't acted, it was genuine. The lack of space forced the scenes to feel tense, sweaty, and suffocating, especially during moments focused on Billy's presence. In many ways, the attic became its own character, shaping performances and reinforcing the film's trapped, voyeuristic atmosphere. The discomfort on screen was entirely real. Fact number 18. The film's marketing misled audiences. When Black Christmas premiered, the studio avoided marketing it as a horror movie. They feared the darker elements would discourage audiences during the holiday season, so posters and trailers emphasized drama instead of danger. Some promotional materials even leaned into mystery thriller language, downplaying the film's more chilling content. Not clever marketing. A confused campaign. The result was a divided audience. Some viewers expected a traditional holiday drama and were blindsided by the film's tension. Others who wanted horror didn't realize the movie offered exactly that. Early box office numbers suffered because viewers weren't sure what they were walking into. But over time, this misdirection ironically fueled the film's mythos. It became a whispered recommendation, a movie people talked about quietly, then urgently. The slower rise didn't weaken its legacy, it strengthened it. Fact number 19. It was one of the first films to use the final girl structure. Jess isn't just a survivor. She's one of the earliest fully realized versions of what horror fans now call the final girl. Long before the trope became popular, Jess embodied its key elements: resilience, intelligence, emotional depth, and the ability to remain calm while the world around her collapses. Not cliché, prototype. Her arc stands out because she wasn't written as a symbolic archetype. Clark and Olivia Hussey approached the character with seriousness, grounding her responses in logic and quiet resolve rather than panic. Jess becomes the emotional center of the film, giving audiences someone to root for in a story filled with dread and uncertainty. Her survival isn't triumphant, it's haunting, reflective of a horror landscape still developing its vocabulary. In many ways, Jess walked so later horror heroines could run. Fact number 20. The film used real police dispatch procedures. Bob Clark wanted the police subplot to feel authentic, so he consulted real officers to study genuine dispatch procedures, call rhythms, and communication habits. The resulting scenes weren't exaggerations. They were grounded in how officers actually worked in the 70s. Not theatrical drama, procedural realism. This choice gave the film a dual structure: the chaotic, emotionally charged sorority house, and the calm, methodical police station. The contrast heightened the tension, emphasizing how slowly official support can move while danger escalates elsewhere. It also allowed the movie to avoid the melodramatic portrayals common in horror at the time. Every clipped line, every rushed radio call, every delayed response underscored the real-world obstacles characters faced. The authenticity made the danger feel practical rather than dramatic, something that could happen anywhere. And that grounded realism is part of why Black Christmas remains so chilling today. Black Christmas 1974 wasn't just a holiday horror movie. It was a groundbreaking experiment that reshaped an entire genre, quietly, boldly, and against all odds. Its legacy survives because filmmakers took risks in the cold, in the dark, and under pressure few modern productions could endure. If you want more deep dive secrets from classic films, hit like, subscribe, and never stop exploring the shadows.